For 300 years, the galaxy lived without the voice of humanity. No signal, no colony, no ship. It was as if an entire species had been erased from history. In the early days, when the silence first began, some alien scholars believed it was only temporary. They thought humans had hidden themselves, preparing for something greater. But years turned into decades, and decades into centuries. The name of humanity slowly faded from memory. Among the stars, humanity became nothing more than a legend. Stories were told in markets, in taverns, and even in schools. They spoke of humans as if they were ghosts of the past. Some described them as brave explorers who reached too far and were destroyed by their own ambition. Others said they were reckless warriors who fought one enemy too many and paid the ultimate price. And a few whispered that humans were cursed, destined to rise quickly and burn out even faster. Children of alien worlds listened to these tales like fairy stories. Once, the elders said, there was a species that could adapt to anything. They were fragile but stubborn, weak but clever. They burned brighter than all others. And then they were gone. To many, humanity became known as the lost species. And for most of the galaxy, that was enough. The stars were dangerous, and one less rival meant more space for the rest, but not everyone was at peace with the silence. There were a few who still feared humanity. They remembered old wars, old battles, old alliances where humans had proven themselves far more dangerous than their fragile bodies suggested. And deep in their archives, they kept warnings: do not underestimate humanity. They always return, yet even the most cautious minds eventually grew quiet. 3 centuries is a long time. Civilizations rose and fell during those years. Borders changed. Empires crumbled. New powers were born. The galaxy moved on, confident that humanity was gone forever. And then, the silence broke. It began at the edge of known space. A single signal, weak but unmistakable. It was not a natural pulse, nor a random burst of radiation. It was structured, intelligent, designed, and it carried a code, an ancient code, written in the style of old Earth transmissions. At first, the scanners of nearby patrol ships ignored it. After all, signals echo across the stars all the time. But the code repeated, again and again. And then it changed. It grew stronger. It began to spread, moving across frequencies, reaching deeper into alien networks. The message was clear. 3 words only: we are returning. When the first reports reached the Galactic Council, disbelief filled the chamber. Leaders of a dozen species gathered in a vast hall of light and glass, stared at the projection with unease. This must be a trick, one delegate said. An imitation, argued another. Humans are extinct. They cannot return. But the signal could not be denied. It carried markers, mathematical patterns, linguistic shapes, even encryption codes that matched ancient human designs. No other species could fake it so perfectly. Whispers spread across the chamber. The word human had not been spoken in that place for centuries. Now it echoed again. Could it truly be them, after all this time? What have they been doing in the silence? The council grew uneasy. Memories returned, memories they had tried to bury. The battles where human fleets had turned the tide against impossible odds. The colonies that had thrived on planets no other species could survive. The stories of human stubbornness, their refusal to surrender, their strange ability to turn weakness into strength. For 300 years, the galaxy had known peace without them. But now the old fear returned. If humanity had survived, what had they become? The Council sent probes to the edge of space. They scanned for fleets, for colonies, for signs of life. But the silence answered once more. Only the signal remained, pulsing steadily, as if waiting for someone to answer. Some demanded immediate action. "Destroy the source!" one shouted. If it is humanity, they must not be allowed to rise again. Others hesitated. What if it is not them? What if it is something worse? And what if humanity has grown stronger than before? The debate grew heated, voices rising, threats exchanged. But none could deny the truth. Something had awakened. Something had returned from the dark. Far away, on forgotten worlds, old ruins stirred. Machines built by human hands long ago powered on once more. Satellites left drifting and dead suddenly reactivated. And ancient colonies thought abandoned flickered with light. The galaxy trembled. For 3 centuries, they had told stories of humans as myths. Now, the myth was alive again. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows of space, humanity watched in silence, just as they always had. The Council thought the signal was a mistake, a trick, an echo from a long-dead species, but the galaxy soon learned the truth. Weeks after the first transmission, the outer patrols began reporting strange activity. Unidentified ships appeared near the border systems, ships that did not match any known design. At first, they looked primitive, almost outdated. Sharp metal hulls, old thruster patterns. But then, the scanners picked up something terrifying. Those old shapes carried energy far beyond modern standards. Weapons that hummed with unknown power. Engines that moved without fuel trails. The patrol ships tried to approach. They sent standard greetings, hailing the strangers, demanding identification. But the ships never answered. They moved in silence, drifting like ghosts through the stars. The reports reached the Galactic Council. The chamber grew tense as footage played across the great screens. Dark, angular vessels, cold light burning across their hulls. No markings, no banners, only the shape of ships once known to belong to a species long thought dead. "Humans," whispered one delegate. The word carried through the chamber like a spark in dry grass, but there was no proof. No voice, no crew seen, only silent ships watching, waiting. The Council sent stronger patrols, warships this time. They moved to intercept one of the unknown fleets. But as they approached, the human ships shifted formation with perfect precision. Not aggressive, not retreating, simply moving like predators circling prey. The alien commander gave the order, "Hold fire. Do not provoke them." For long minutes, the 2 fleets faced each other in the dark. Every scanner on every ship strained to read the other. Every crew member held their breath. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, the human ships vanished. Not destroyed, not retreating into normal space. They simply faded, as if slipping into another layer of reality. The Council grew restless. How could ships so old carry such impossible technology? Where had humanity gone all these centuries? And, most frightening of all, why were they returning now? Rumors spread across the galaxy like fire. Merchants whispered of human fleets appearing near trade routes. Miners spoke of old colonies reigniting with lights in the dark. And on frontier worlds, people swore they heard voices on the comms, human voices, speaking words none had heard in centuries. The panic began quietly. Some called them ghosts. Others said they were imposters. But deep inside, many feared the truth. Humanity had survived, and they had grown stronger in silence. The Galactic Council gathered again in secret. This time, the debates turned bitter. "We must destroy them now," one leader demanded. "If we wait, they will become unstoppable." "And if they are already unstoppable?" Another countered. "We should offer peace alliance. Humanity may have faced something greater than us all." The chamber broke into chaos. Voices clashed. Threats filled the air. Old rivalries flared as species argued not just about humanity, but about who would lead the response. All the while, the silent ships kept moving, always on the edge of alien space, always watching, never speaking, until one day, they did. A broadcast appeared across thousands of star systems at once. Every screen, every comm station, every network lit up with the same message. The screen showed a shadowed figure, a human. His face was hidden, but his voice carried power. We were silent. We were forgotten. But we were never gone now. "We are returning!" The galaxy trembled. This was no trick, no echo, no ghost. It was real. Humanity was alive, but the message gave no answers. No reason for their silence. No explanation for their return. Only the warning, "We are returning." The Council demanded action. Some called for fleets to gather to prepare for war. Others argued for patience to see what humanity wanted. But deep in their hearts, every leader asked the same question. What had humanity become in 300 years of silence? On distant worlds, fear spread faster than any fleet. Citizens prepared shelters, armies trained. Children whispered about the humans as if they were monsters from a nightmare, yet some, very few, felt hope. They remembered old stories when humans had stood against greater enemies and saved allies who once mocked them. They wondered if perhaps The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as protectors. No one knew the truth. And that was the greatest fear of all, because in the cold void of space, the first signs of humanity had already appeared, and they were only the beginning. The galaxy had not felt such fear in centuries. For generations, the Council of Species ruled with confidence. They managed disputes, controlled trade, and maintained a fragile balance of peace. But the return of humanity shattered that peace like glass. Every species remembered the humans in their own way. For some, they were explorers, curious, bold, willing to walk into the unknown. For others, they were warriors, unpredictable, dangerous, impossible to control. And for many, they were survivors, weak in body, but strong in mind, never surrendering even when defeat seemed certain. Now those memories returned, sharper than ever. Alien historians searched their archives, digging up old records of human battles. One account told of a human fleet outnumbered 3-1, yet refusing to retreat. They fought until their ships were nothing but fire, and in their final act, they destroyed the enemy's flagship, turning certain defeat into a draw. Another story spoke of human colonists on a frozen world. The air was toxic, the storms endless, the land unforgiving. No other species could survive there. Yet the humans adapted, building cities from ice and metal, turning the planet into a thriving home. The more the Council remembered, the more the fear grew. Humans had always been underestimated, and now they had been silent for 300 years. No one knew what they had become. Whispers filled the stars. On trading stations, merchants asked one another, "What if the humans have weapons we cannot imagine?" On military outposts, soldiers muttered, "If they return to war, who could stop them?" On peaceful worlds, civilians prayed, "May they stay away from us." The galaxy trembled not because humanity had attacked, but because humanity had not attacked. Their silence was more frightening than any fleet of warships. They were waiting, watching, preparing. The Council held endless meetings. Some members demanded war. "Strike first," they said. "Do not give them time to grow." Others argued for peace. "If they have survived something worse than us, perhaps they return as allies." But the Council could not agree. Fear divided them, and humanity gave them no answers. Reports continued to arrive. In one sector, a fleet of unknown ships appeared near a mining colony. They did not attack, but all the machinery on the colony shut down for hours, as if studied. When power returned, nothing was damaged, but every system carried a strange mark, an old human code buried deep inside. In another system, explorers found ruins long thought abandoned. Once they had been human colonies, the aliens expected to find only dust and stone. Instead, they found lights glowing beneath the ground, machines humming, doors locked tight, refusing to open, as if the colony itself was waiting for something or someone. Each incident deepened the fear. Were humans reclaiming their old worlds? Were they planting seeds for something larger? Or were they simply reminding the galaxy, "We are still here"? The galaxy grew restless. Alliances shifted. Borders tightened. Fleets moved into position, not against one another, but against the humans. And yet no one dared fire the first shot, because deep inside, every species remembered the same truth. Humans never fought clean wars. They turned every weakness into strength, every mistake into victory. To fight them blindly would be suicide. Fear spread like a shadow. Even the most powerful empires felt it. The galaxy had faced many dangers before: plagues, invaders, civil wars. But this was different. This was an enemy they thought was gone, an enemy that had returned in silence. And still, the question echoed through every council chamber, every command ship, every home across the stars. What did humanity do during those 300 years of silence? No one had the answer. And perhaps that was why the fear was so strong, because in the endless darkness of space, the unknown is always the most terrifying. For months, the galaxy lived in fear of shadows, strange signals, silent ships, rumors of human colonies reawakening. But now there was no more rumor. Humanity had returned, and this time everyone could see them. The first fleet arrived at the borders of Council space. Not a massive armada, not the endless swarms some had feared. Only a single fleet of 30 ships. Yet those 30 ships shook the galaxy more than any armada could. At first glance, they looked old. Their frames were sharp and angular, the kind of design humans had once built centuries ago. But the closer the scanners looked, the stranger they became. Hull plating that shimmered like liquid metal. Weapons that glowed faintly, humming with power unknown to alien science. Engines that made no fuel trails, moving faster and smoother than any drive the galaxy had ever seen. The alien fleets rushed to meet them. Dozens of warships, gathered from nearby systems, formed a wall at the border. Their weapons were armed, their shields raised. The order was simple: do not let the humans pass. The human fleet stopped just short of the line. Not a single weapon powered on. Not a single ship moved out of formation. They just waited. For hours, the two fleets faced each other in silence. Alien commanders shouted across comms, "Identify yourselves! State your purpose! Turn back or face destruction." But no reply came. The human ships remained still, their dark hulls reflecting the cold light of distant stars. The tension grew unbearable. Alien crews gripped their controls, ready for war. Some prayed. Some sweated in silence. Everyone waited for the first shot, and then, without warning, the human flagship moved forward, slowly, calmly. One ship, gliding past the invisible line that marked Council space. Weapons locked onto it instantly. Thousands of targeting systems focused on a single vessel. It should have been suicide. One ship against dozens, but the humans did not flinch. The flagship sailed through the line as if it belonged there. Its shields absorbed every scan. Its weapons stayed cold. It moved with such confidence that the alien fleet hesitated. No one fired. Instead, they watched. Because something about the human ship was different. Its surface shifted, patterns flowing across its armor like light dancing on water. And for a moment it seemed alive. The human fleet followed. One by one, their ships glided past the border. Still silent. Still waiting. Not invaders. Not attackers. Observers. Across the galaxy, the images spread. Every screen, every network, every soldier in every barrack saw them. The returned fleet of humanity. The reaction was chaos. On some worlds, riots broke out. Citizens screamed that war was coming, that humanity had returned to conquer. On others, people whispered with awe. Children asked if the stories were true, that humans once fought for allies, that they once saved worlds from destruction. The council gathered in emergency session. "The chamber filled with panic and fury. They cross our borders without permission," shouted one delegate. "This is an act of war." "Do not be fools," argued another. "Look at their ships. We do not understand their weapons, their engines, their technology. If we fire first, we may not live to regret it. But if we do nothing," a third voice warned, "they will spread. They will reclaim their colonies. They will grow strong again, and then it will be too late." The council could not agree. The galaxy was divided, and all the while, the human fleet continued its silent march, one system at a time. They did not conquer. They did not demand. They simply moved, studied, and then left. It was almost worse than invasion, because no one knew their purpose, and fear thrives most in silence. At last, a single moment broke the stillness. On the capital world of a frontier system, a shadow fell across the sky. A human ship hovered above the planet, larger than anything the locals had ever seen. It stayed there for hours, silent, unmoving, and then a message came. Not to the council, not to the fleets, but to the common people. It was the same message that had haunted the galaxy for months. 3 simple words, spoken in a calm, human voice. "We are returning." And then the ship was gone. The galaxy trembled. Not because humanity attacked. Not because they conquered, but because they did not need to. Their presence alone was enough to remind the stars of a terrifying truth. Humanity had always been dangerous, but after 300 years of silence, they had become something far greater. And now, they were back. For months, the galaxy had seen the silent human fleets. They crossed borders without fear, hovered above worlds without explanation, and vanished before anyone could react. Their message never changed. 3 simple words: "We are returning." The council grew desperate. They sent fleets, spies, envoys, anything to understand the humans. But every attempt ended the same way: silence. The humans ignored every hail, every call, every demand. They moved like shadows, untouchable, unstoppable. And then it happened. The first true contact. It was on Vera, a neutral world often used as a meeting ground for traders and diplomats. The council had gathered in secret, their leaders cloaked in fear and pride, waiting for answers. The chamber was vast, a circle of light suspended above the planet's surface, guarded by warships from every major empire. The delegates argued among themselves. They mock us by ignoring our calls. Perhaps they see us as beneath them. Or perhaps they are waiting for us to beg. Their voices were sharp, filled with tension. And then, without warning, the chamber darkened. Every light dimmed. Every screen flickered. A figure appeared in the center of the chamber. Not on a screen. Not a projection from council technology. This was something else. It was a human, tall, armored, his face hidden beneath a mask of shifting light. The design was unlike anything the council had seen, half machine, half living pattern. He stood silently, his presence alone filling the hall with cold fear. For the first time in 3 centuries, a human spoke to the galaxy. "We were silent," the envoy said, his voice calm but powerful. "We were forgotten. But we were never gone." The words carried weight, echoing in every mind. Not just sound, but something deeper, as if the voice touched the thoughts of those who heard it. The chamber froze. No delegate dared speak. At last, the chancellor of the council found his voice. "Humanity, why have you returned?" The envoy's mask glowed faintly. "For 300 years we fought in silence. Beyond the stars, you know, beyond the maps you draw, we faced an enemy you cannot imagine. We endured what none of you could endure, and now we are here." Gasps filled the chamber. An enemy? Beyond the galaxy? What could force humanity into 3 centuries of silence? One delegate slammed a clawed hand on the table. "Lies, you vanished because you were weak. You return now only to frighten us with shadows." The envoy turned his masked face toward him. The delegate fell silent. No threat was spoken, no weapon drawn, yet the weight of that gaze was enough to still him. "We do not seek your fear," the human said. "We bring you warning. What we faced in the dark is coming. It will not stop. And when it arrives, your fleets, your weapons, your empires will fall. Only together can you survive." The council erupted in chaos. Some delegates shouted for alliance. Others screamed for war. A few demanded proof, evidence of this so-called enemy, but the human envoy stood calm, waiting for the storm to pass. When the voices fell, he spoke again. "You remember us as fragile. You remember us as reckless, but you forget what made us strong. We survive. We adapt. We endure. We were silent because we had no choice. We return because you have no choice." The words struck like thunder. Every leader in the chamber felt it. Truth or lie, humanity had returned with power the galaxy could not ignore. And then, as suddenly as he appeared, the envoy was gone. The lights returned. The chamber stood empty once more, but the echo of his words lingered. "We return because you have no choice." The council was divided. Half believed the humans. Half wanted them destroyed before they grew stronger. But all agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same again. For the first time in 300 years, humanity had spoken. And their voice shook the stars. The council was shaken. For the first time in centuries, a human voice had spoken. Not as a ghost, not as a rumor, but as a warning. The chamber where the envoy appeared still buzzed with fear and anger. Delegates shouted across the hall, their words filled with panic. "They lie! Humans always twist the truth. They speak of an enemy, yet where is this enemy? What if they bring it with them? No, what if they are the enemy?" The council fractured, unable to decide. But outside the chamber, across the galaxy, people whispered about the message. What enemy had humanity faced in the dark? What nightmare could keep them silent for 300 years? The answer came sooner than expected. It began with a broadcast, this time not to the council, but to the entire galaxy. Every screen, every comm network, every relay lit up with the same image: a battlefield. Not like the wars of the council. This was something else. Burning stars. Broken planets. Vast fleets of ships, larger than moons, locked in endless battle, creatures of metal and fire swarming through space like living storms. And in the middle of it all, humanity. Their ships were battered, scarred, ancient, but they fought like demons. Every vessel moved with ruthless precision. Every weapon struck with deadly purpose. The humans had faced an enemy of unthinkable power, an enemy that devoured entire systems. The galaxy watched in silence. For the first time, they saw what humanity had endured. Then, the broadcast shifted. The image of a human appeared, not armored this time, but bare-faced. Old, scarred, his eyes carrying the weight of centuries. His voice was calm. For 300 years we fought alone. We faced the machines from beyond, the endless swarm. They consume. They destroy. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. We fought them so you would not have to, but they are not gone. They follow. They learn, and they are coming. The words hit the galaxy like a storm, the endless swarm, a force beyond comprehension, a predator that could consume empires in a single tide. If humanity spoke the truth, then the galaxy was already in danger, but not all believed. Some shouted lies, human tricks. They forged this footage to frighten us. They want to rule us with fear. They bring this enemy with them as a weapon. Yet others looked at the faces of the humans in those recordings, faces weary, scarred, unbroken, and knew the truth. No species could fake such suffering. No one could fight such a war for 3 centuries and survive, unless they were human. Across the stars, the debate raged. Some worlds prepared their fleets to fight beside humanity. Others called for extermination, demanding war against the cursed species before the swarm arrived. The council split further, each empire suspicious of the other, each afraid of what was coming. And through it all, the humans stayed silent once more. Their fleets hovered at the edge of alien space, watching, waiting. Their envoys appeared and vanished like ghosts, never attacking, never begging, only warning. The galaxy trembled not only because of the swarm, but because of what it saw in humanity. 3 centuries of war had changed them. They no longer looked fragile. They no longer looked weak. They had become something new, something the galaxy did not yet understand. Whispers spread like wildfire. If humans could survive this enemy, what else had they learned? What weapons had they built in the dark? What power did they now command? The truth was terrifying enough. But the greater mystery was worse. Humanity had revealed the enemy they faced. But they had not revealed everything. Not yet. Because there was still a question that echoed in every mind. Did the humans defeat the swarm? Or did they only delay it? And if the swarm was still out there, still coming, then the galaxy's greatest fear was not humanity's return. It was what humanity had brought back with them. The galaxy stood at the edge of panic. Everywhere the same question burned. Should we trust the humans, or destroy them before it's too late? The council chamber became a war zone of words. Leaders shouted until their voices cracked. The humans must be stopped. One delegate roared. They hide in the dark, and now they bring nightmares into our stars. They must be allies, another argued. No one else has faced this swarm and survived. Without them, we are nothing. But there was no unity. The galaxy fractured. Some empires gathered fleets, preparing to strike the humans before the swarm arrived. Others quietly reached out to humanity, sending secret signals, desperate for protection. And the common people, ordinary citizens across 1,000 worlds, spoke of only one thing: fear. Fear of the humans. Fear of the swarm. Fear of what was coming. In the darkness beyond council space, the human fleet waited. Silent, cold, watching. They sent no armies, no threats. Only one final transmission. It was not to the council this time. It was to every world, every ship, every living being who could hear. A simple message. You have a choice. Stand with us or stand alone. But choose quickly, because the swarm does not wait. The word spread like fire. Across the galaxy, billions listened. It was not a demand, not a command. It was a truth. For the first time, alien worlds looked at their leaders with doubt. The council had mocked humans for centuries, called them fragile, weak, unworthy. And yet, here they were, still alive, still standing, after 300 years of endless war. If humanity could endure that, could any other species hope to do the same? Still, suspicion was strong. A great empire, the Zorath Dominion, made its choice. They sent their fleets not toward the swarm, but toward humanity. The council chamber gasped as the declaration echoed. "The humans are a disease," the Zorath commander thundered. "They bring this enemy with them. If we destroy humanity now, the swarm will not follow." Millions cheered. Millions more despaired, and as the Zorath fleets advanced, other empires hesitated. Would they join the attack, or risk everything to protect the humans? The galaxy teetered. On a distant world, children stared at the human broadcast, whispering of heroes who fought monsters in the dark. On another, soldiers prepared their ships, torn between orders and conscience. Even in the council itself, some leaders secretly contacted the humans, begging for guidance. The truth was clear. No one trusted anyone anymore. Not even themselves, and then the choice was forced. A scream tore across every comm network. Sensors lit up. Warnings blared. The swarm had arrived, not rumors, not recordings, reality. From the edge of the galaxy, countless ships poured in, living metal, twisted and shifting, their shapes impossible to describe. They filled the void like a tide of nightmares, blotting out starlight. Worlds near the border sent desperate calls for help, their defenses breaking in minutes. The swarm consumed everything, and in that moment the galaxy understood. The humans had spoken the truth. Panic erupted. Worlds begged for protection. Fleets turned away from each other and toward the new enemy. Even the Zorath Dominion, who had sworn to destroy humanity, faltered at the sight, because now there was no choice left. Either they stood together, or they all burned. The human fleet moved first, not with hesitation, not with fear. They moved like predators returning to a battlefield they knew too well. Ships scarred from old wars formed ranks with perfect discipline, weapons powered up with a hum that shook the void. Voices echoed across channels, calm, firm, unshaken. "This is not the beginning of war," the humans declared. "This is its continuation. We fought it before. We will fight it again. But now, you must choose. Fight beside us or fall alone." The galaxy held its breath. And at last, one empire stepped forward. Not the strongest, not the richest, but the first, a small world, long ignored by the council, sent its fleet to humanity's side. "We believe," their leader said simply. And their ships took formation beside the scarred human vessels. Others followed, hesitant at first, then faster. One by one, fleets turned toward the humans. Not all, not enough, but some. Enough to begin. The choice had been made. Not by the council, not by the mighty empires, but by the galaxy itself, by those who wanted to live. For the first time in centuries, humanity was not alone. And as the swarm advanced like a storm across the stars, a single truth rang clear. The real war had only just begun. The galaxy had no more time for debate. The swarm was here. It moved like a living storm across the stars, ships like razor-edged beasts, twisting and reshaping as they flew. Planets screamed for help, their skies burning in hours. Armies that had mocked the humans were swept aside like dust, and in the middle of that chaos, humanity stood ready. The human fleet gathered at the border world of Jorath Prime, a fortress world now shaking under the weight of invasion. Its defenders had already fallen silent, their fleets torn apart. The swarm was advancing, and nothing could stop it, except, perhaps, the humans. Their ships appeared in perfect formation, not sleek or beautiful, but scarred, armored, battle-forged. Every vessel bore the marks of centuries of war. Every crew knew what was coming, and beside them, their new allies appeared. Small fleets, scattered empires, even independent worlds who chose to believe. They were not many, but they came. For the first time in 300 years, humanity was not alone. The council watched in silence as the battle began. Sensors captured every moment, broadcasts spreading across the galaxy. All eyes were on Jorath Prime. Would humanity's warnings prove true, or would the galaxy fall with them? The first clash shook the stars. The swarm came in endless numbers, living ships crashing into human lines, claws tearing, weapons screaming. For every swarm ship destroyed, 10 more appeared. But the humans did not break. They fought like a wall of fire, their formations tight, their commands sharp and steady. Every shot counted. Every maneuver struck with purpose. The Allies followed their lead. At first clumsy, scattered, but then they began to learn. They moved with the humans, covering their flanks, striking where they were told. A rhythm formed, chaotic at first, then stronger, fiercer. The galaxy had never fought like this. They had never been taught. But the humans, they had learned in blood. The swarm pressed harder. Gigantic war forms appeared, the size of cities, vomiting waves of destruction. Entire fleets vanished in moments. But then, the humans revealed their own weapon. From deep within their lines, massive dreadnoughts emerged. Ancient ships, older than any empire's history, rebuilt 1,000 times in secret. Their hulls glowed with scars. Their guns lit the void, and when they fired, stars themselves seemed to tremble. The swarm reeled. For the first time in ages, it hesitated. The galaxy watching could hardly breathe. The council sat frozen, unable to speak. Every species saw it. The humans were not lying. The humans were not weak. They were warriors forged in endless fire, and now they were teaching the galaxy how to fight. Still, victory did not come easily. For every swarm ship destroyed, more spilled through the rift at the galaxy's edge. The tide seemed endless. The battle stretched for hours, then days. Allies fell. Worlds burned. Even human ships, though fierce, were torn apart one by one. But they did not stop. Not once, because they could not. They had carried this war for 300 years. They had promised to finish it, and now the galaxy fought beside them. The final blow came when humanity unleashed its last secret, a weapon hidden in silence for centuries. Not a single gun, not a single bomb, but a strategy. The humans lured the swarm toward the unstable star of Jorath Prime, drawing them into the gravity well, forcing them closer and closer, sacrificing ships, sacrificing fleets, until the swarm was caught in the trap. Then, with a single command, the humans ignited the star. The supernova tore the void apart. The swarm screamed as countless ships burned in the explosion. The shockwave crushed fleets, shattered worlds. But humanity endured. Their ships, shielded and prepared, weathered the firestorm. And when the light faded, the swarm was broken. Not destroyed, never destroyed, but wounded, driven back, forced to retreat into the dark beyond the galaxy's edge. Silence fell. Not the silence of death, but the silence of awe. The galaxy watched humanity standing in the ruins, scarred, bloodied, but unbroken. They had fought the impossible. And they had won. For the first time, the galaxy did not see humans as myths or threats or strangers. They saw them for what they truly were, survivors, warriors, the shield that had protected them for 3 centuries. And perhaps the shield that would protect them again. But as the humans gathered their fleets, their envoy spoke once more. "This is not the end," the voice said, calm and cold. "The swarm will return, stronger, hungrier, but now we will not face it alone." The galaxy trembled, because the war was not over. It had only begun, and humanity was leading the fight.